basically, in the most layer of terms, means managing your finances. So in the next few minutes, and I'll try and keep it very simple and basic so that we can all go home with something, I would basically try and explain what personal finances, the objectives of personal financing, and I would also share with you some best practices or some areas that you can focus on to improve or enhance your personal financing. I think before we start a journey between Accra and Kumasi, for example, you would... Thank you very much, Father. So I think when you want to start a journey between here and Kumasi, you probably will spend some time to think about the mode of transportation. So am I going to go by road? Am I going to go by air? Am I going to go in my own car or VIP? You probably would also end up thinking about even what to wear. Whether you are going for a wedding or you are going for a funeral or you are going for a party will determine what to wear. Then you would also think about the time to leave. Is it AM? Is it midday? Is it PM? And so on and so forth. What are we doing? We are planning. Many a time in this country especially, and most parts of the third world, we plan everything apart from our financing. And so it is when the prospectus are sent or received from the schools that you see parents running around looking for money to go and buy chopbox and trunks, etc., to prepare your child to go to school. We don't plan to fail. We fail to plan. And that is why I believe that putting your finances in order would help you to minimize the risk of hardship, especially when you age and you go beyond the 60. Because if you don't plan well on the trip to Kumasi, you wouldn't know whether you are going by air or by car. If by road, you put something into it. So what we need to do is to basically focus on how much we have. And I've always said you can only spend what you have. Anything beyond that, you are going on a roller coaster. Right? You can only spend what you have. Unless you're a magician. And we have quite a lot in this country, I'm told. But unless you're a magician, if you earn 40 Ghana cedis a month, if you earn 100,000 a month, your expenditure should fall within the 40 Ghana cedis or 100 Ghana cedis. Because ideally, you want to make sure that you've satisfied all your basic needs. You want to pay your rent. You want to pay your feeding, light, water, if there are kids, school fees. Even if they are not of school-going age, there's Pampers to buy, there's Cerelac to buy, etc., etc. So you have a humongous list of things that you need to do at the end or at the beginning of every month, depending on what your expenditure looks like. So for us as accountants, for example, we have our basic thing called profit and loss account, or income and expense, or receipts and payment, right? And there's a word called surplus, or you have another word called deficit, right? It is only companies, and that's been my advice, it's only companies that should go into deficit if that is what the requirement is, or if you can help it. But as individuals, we should always end up in a surplus position. That is the only way you would prevent yourself from going over your limits. Go to, and we've always said this, especially in this parish, go to your wardrobe right now. And at least for me, the first thing I see is what I wear. So if it's at the back of the wardrobe, I probably have not seen it for a while. But we bought it. We spent money on it, and you realize that maybe in a whole year, you've used it just once. I won't talk about the ladies, but you know what I'm talking about, right? You spend money. Every wedding there should be a dress. Every funeral there should be a cloth, and so on and so forth. And we stash away so much in material stuff that we get to the point where when we actually need liquidity, and liquidity is basically cash in your pocket, right? So you can have a house. I mean, if you are broke and you've not rented the house or nobody's renting it, you are broke, even though the house is worth 1 million. But you should have something liquid with you so that you can always spend. So basically the objective of financial management is to make sure that you are always in a surplus position, so that when that phone call comes from the village that mama is gone or dada is gone, or this uncle is gone or that aunt is gone, you are in the position to go and do the dignifying thing of burying your mother or your father, not to start looking for loans or whatever, deferring the burial. Even in COVID times, we would have thought that Ghanaians would do better and quickly bury, but we're still keeping, because you have to wait for a brother or two in the US or Canada or England to come down and support, because we have not put money on the side. We have failed basically to get a surplus position. And it's very simple. And I'll tell you why it is very simple in about 5 broader headlines. Do we have to do a budget at the beginning of every month or at the end of every month? Do we have to create an emergency fund or some reserve for emergency? Our debts, how much do we borrow? What do we borrow them for? Do we really need to make those borrowings? As we sit here, majority of us, just taking a glance, are definitely more than 40, 50. How many of us have started thinking about pension? And if you are 30 sitting here and you think 30 years is far away from here, ask those who are 60. They will tell you once upon a time they were also 30. But are we planning for our pension? Then I would also talk about considering your family, especially your immediate family, especially the children, and how they live when you are gone. What is a budget? A budget is basically taking how much. So take an employee. The assumption is that all you do is to work for, say, Ghana GCB or EcoBank, whatever it is. At the end of the month, you get 50,000 Ghana cedis. You get 5,000 Ghana cedis. You get 10,000 Ghana cedis. A budget is basically taking that money and now telling yourself, what am I going to do for the month of May? Right, we are in May, right? So for the month of May, what am I going to do? You pay rent if you don't already have a house, or you pay a mortgage if you've taken a loan. You pay fuel, you pay school fees, you buy food, etc., etc., etc. But your budget should be such that it shouldn't go beyond your income, which is 5,000 a month, using the example we're having. It shouldn't go beyond your income. So if you look within your budget and you go past 5,000, then you should begin to ask yourself, what can I cut down? You have to live within your means, right? Even those of us who have kids who are very well endowed and are working hard, and you still don't want to basically rely on them. So it's basically your personal budget, right? And this is a habit that it's not Ghanaian. You know, the money comes, pay, then, okay, we'll survive. Don't worry, the next month will come, and so on and so on and so forth. But if we begin to do a budget, you realize that a lot of the expenses will be cut down. If you are very disciplined, a lot of the expenses will be cut down. Right? So personal budgeting. And if we can take this habit, maybe some of us are too old and so we cannot start a habit, but at least we can begin to train our kids to plan how they spend the money. There's always that emergency that will come. There's always that emergency. Sometimes you say that money smells. Because sometimes you are there, there's no money in your pocket. Nobody calls you, huh? Nobody calls you. No phone call from the village, no from nobody. As soon as somebody comes and says, "Oh, Kingsford, take a gift of 10,000," I can bet you within 2-3 hours, some phone calls will come. And you think, has this guy gone to tell the whole world that he's giving me money? Money smells. Right? And so you should always have that emergency funding to take care of emergencies. Not all of us are on NHIS. Not all of us have medical insurance. But you and I don't know when we are going to fall sick. Apart from those who are already on medication, which you know your trend. Right? And so there should always be, within your budgeting, that surplus that you put on the side just for emergency. Now, debt. The culture of borrowing in this country is actually getting very worrying. I don't want to get political. I'm just talking about personal financing here. Right? If you look at, your mother has been in the hospital for, say, 6 months. You've been told that she has a week or 6 or 7, whatever it is, to go. And yet, because you have not planned well, your mother dies and you don't have what it takes to send her home. Right? It is because right from the word go, we didn't plan for this. Especially those of us, and I'm choosing my words carefully, who are privileged to have them sick for a while. Because I always say that it's one of the two sides of the coin. Some people will complain that, if she knew she was going to go, she should have gone quickly so that I don't spend on medicals. Others too will say, if she had stayed on for another 6 weeks, I would have prepared myself. So depending on where you sit, it could be beneficial. Yet you are not ready. And so you go and you borrow money. And you don't borrow money hedging your repayment on any realistic or sustainable income. About Nsawa. You give me 30,000, and when I finish the funeral, I've invited this person, I've invited that person. When I finish the funeral, I'll come and pay you. How many of us don't borrow to do big weddings? My son is going to get married. My next door neighbor did the reception at conference center. I need to move it a notch higher. And there's a very lavish wedding with the kids having no idea how it was funded. And they come and, these days it's about competition of dancing, and fortunately COVID has curtailed a bit of this. But it's a competition of dancing and all that. They have no clue, because you see, if they paid for the wedding, they won't dance the way they were dancing. Trust me, they won't. Because the guy going there is thinking about the photographer is going to come tomorrow, the caterer is going to come, and so on and so forth. But here they are, mommy paid for it, daddy paid for it, and for all you know, daddy went and borrowed. Right? How many of us don't hear of people borrowing to have some very basic things? If you don't have it, you don't spend it. The emergencies, no two ways about it. That is how come sometimes you have to borrow. But it should be within sensible limits, so that you are able to pay. We have lost so many friends, or so many friendships have been broken because of people borrowing money and not repaying. Right? And sometimes when they come the second time, they forget about the first time. Or they might even tell you that, you know what, I know that I owe you, but it's okay, you help me. The person you are going to borrow the money from planned. That is how come he or she has a surplus. There's nothing like he's too rich. Because the more money you have, the more expenses you tend to have. Right? But that person has that 10,000 cedis, that 50,000 cedis, because he or she planned. And I think that is where we need to get to. We've taken, when you listen to our bankers, they will sell anything to you. Our bankers will sell anything to you. All the products, and come and take this credit card, you repay it in number of years. Every month you pay 50 cedis, it's okay. But you see, what you are doing is that as you take the 3,000, so we did some analysis some time ago, right? If you take, say, 3,000 Ghana cedis limit of the credit card, and you use it to the limit, so you've spent the entire 3,000, and you pay the minimum amount every month, it would take you 33 years to clear it. Because, you see, you pay the minimum amount and they slap you with the interest, and it compounds, and so on and so forth. Credit card, and it's not quite common in our setting, but it's creeping up now, and they make it look so psychedelic, and so it's for the fine people, So when people flash it, but it has its own downsides, and so we advise that you take a second look at how we look at credit cards, how we look at our funerals and our weddings and all the other expenses that you think you can manage them. Number 4 is saving for pension. Yes, you have 13 children, you have 11 children, you have 3, etc., etc. But they all have their lives. Right? Yeah, you took care of them. You sent them to wherever you wanted to send them, but they also have their lives. Right? And I admit, our culture setting is such that I was telling my daughter about last week when we were looking at, the old people's home in the UK, because of COVID, they're having to vaccinate them and so on and so forth. And, there it's normal. Once your mother is or your father is above certain age, they just go and dump you there. They live their life. And so I was looking at it and I told my 12-year-old, I beg you, I hope you don't send me there one day. And she says, I hope there's none here in Ghana at that time. And we laughed about it. But that's the reality. It's coming here. It's coming here because all of us are so busy. When was the last time you saw a very close friend? You live in Adenta, he or she lives in Wager. Everybody is busy. You wake up 4 a.m. and you go and so on and so forth. You come back very late. And so we will get to the point one day where, touch wood, we will probably have an old people's home where you will go and leave your mother or your father there. But let's plan towards our pension so that even when we get there, it's a bit easier, because that's what they do. When they are going to the old people's home, it's because they've sold their own houses that they bought. And because they don't want to live alone, then they invest that money into that. How many of us plan for pension? And those of us who work with SNET, like my brother sitting there, will tell you, look, the money from SNET is not anything exciting. Don't quote me anywhere, but that's the plain truth. It's not exciting. So if you're going to rely on your pension, then there's a huge challenge here. But savings, or the savings culture, shouldn't be when you have 10,000 cedis or 20,000 cedis. Even if it's 50 cedis, put it away. We have the credit union here. For example, every Sunday when you are coming, put the 50 cedis there. And we might think, 50 cedis, but at the end of the year, it's 600 cedis. Forget about interest. Multiply that by another 10 years, and we are getting somewhere. Add interest, and you probably would retire with something. But the savings culture in this country is just about 20-25% of us who save, which is not quite encouraging. So I think that it's something that we need to get ourselves into. Planning our own pensions. We've always said it. Don't wait till you get that big money before you think of investing. But no matter how small it is, let it be a habit. Let it be just it comes naturally to you that as soon as I get this money, I need to put something aside, because that should be part of your budgeting. You save first. So of the 5,000, you tell yourself that I'm going to save 1,000 cedis, right, every month. So it is only the 4,000 that you plan for, right? And because you have only 4,000 available, you are most likely to make sure that your expenses are within the 4,000. Yes, once in a while you have to go up because of certain things. You would fall on your investments or your savings to do that. Then finally, I want to talk about the children, or your wife or your spouse and the children. We live in a country or a culture where we think that as soon as you do a will, it means you are coming to die. So most of us, I can bet, when we do the statistics, just about 20% of people in this country have wills or have latest wills. So somebody has done his will 5-10 years ago. He's had a few things afterwards. He's not even bothered to update it. But you know what happens when especially the rich ones die? If you left nothing, nobody will even bother about you, right? But we have, if you go to the courts right now, there are so many cases. You can see a mother, and listen carefully, you can see a mother with a biological son fighting over the property of the father husband in the court, right here in Ghana. Right? It is just because we didn't plan before we left. Right? And if you don't do that, you only create chaos, irrespective of how dignifying or how well you lived your life. Right? There's that fear that if you do a will, it means you are going, which is never true, because I'm told that people who even buy their coffins before they die end up looking at that coffin for several years, right? And the coffin is still sitting there and they've not died. So the fear shouldn't be there. It's just the essence of what we are doing to bring some safety and some decency when you are gone. So in a nutshell, my dear parishioners, let's plan our expenses very well. You deduct your savings first. As a culture, you deduct your savings first. And then you decide to ration what is left on your month. So if you have to put the AC on for 2-3 hours just to have a bit of cool, and then you go to bed with a fan, at least you are in your own house, you know that. There's no competition about this. The fact that this person is dressed this way or you that way doesn't mean you should live above yourself, because when the problems come, it will be you alone, and when the issues come, it will be you alone. The habit of borrowing and borrowing and borrowing is really affecting us, and when you see somebody coming, all of a sudden you want to run away, right? But before I sit down, I also want to talk about, if you want to deduct that 1,000 and put it somewhere, it's important that you go through some processes to be able to make the right choices. And I'm saying this because over the last 3-4 years, you've heard what we've done in the banking reforms, where we've cleaned up a few things. And people will tell you, before I put my money in this institution, I went to the Bank of Ghana website and I saw the name of that institution there, and so it is legit, etc., etc. But that decision is a personal one. Bank of Ghana is just helping you. It's a personal, you need to do a bit of due diligence yourself to be sure. Because I can tell you from what I said, so many people, fortunately the government stepped in and paid it. But so many people would have lost their money because of, I don't want to say it here because I'm on Facebook, but you see, your risk appetite, or our risk appetites are different, right? You might not want trouble, and so you want to put it at somewhere that you know they will give you 1%, but it's guaranteed. Somebody also wants to take the risk and go to somewhere where you get 10%. But these are personal decisions you take, and you should make sure. You should make sure that you've thought through the process and make sure that, because it's an investment you are making, that when you need it, you can fall on. The last thing you want to do is to fall on it and it's not available. So my little advice, after you've planned your finances very well, you've put away some money, take some time, talk to professionals who can help you put your money well, so that that day when you need it, it will be there for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I know we have some questions. We'll take few of them. Few questions if there are questions on our finances. So we have one at the back. 1, 2.